Hi everyone. Today's 5th of January 2018, at least in New Zealand where I am. And we've gone from a drought to a raging cyclone. So what can I say? Anyway, today I want to talk about debunking the myths about childbirth choices and birth plans. Yesterday I talked about debunking the myths about childbirth skills, and I wanted to add one more thought to that. When I first gave birth in 1970, everybody was learning birth skills, Lamaze, Bradley, and in New Zealand where I live now, there were classes taught for women seeking a natural birth, a painless labor, and one without as much medical care. It was based on Grantley Dick Reed's breathing and relaxation exercises. So for a 20-something year period in New Zealand, and the same in the United States, those skills were taught with the goal of women achieving a natural birth, which meant non-medical, and a pain-free labor. And after 20-25 years, the fact is that this is my fly of the day. The fact is, in 25 years, not enough women achieved those goals. So, does that make birth skills wrong? Well, people put them aside and said, well, they don't work. Let's move to choices. But what was wrong, if there's a wrong, or just not a progressive thinking, or not an inclusive thinking, or it was just the time, and so the thinking was based on what was happening then? Had the message been, every woman giving birth is doing the activity, and we want to see all women have skills so that they feel more in control while they birth their baby. Had that message been given way back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, all the way through to today, we would not have the childbirth conversation we have today. And that's one of the myths about childbirth skills. Skills are not for only those small women who end up achieving a non-medical birth that's pain-free. Very few of us have pain-free births. I've been at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of births, and I have seen less than 3% of women have actually pain-free labors. There are a lot more women who find labor pains manageable. But Birthing Better isn't even about labor. It's about all births, all births, all births. And so now we're going to come to this thing about birth choices and birth plans. I've put a link on the description, Channel Moms. I was given that link a few weeks ago. I've watched all of the videos in the labor and birth section. And the reason I'm commenting on it is the openness with which these women talk and the invitation that they give to everybody to talk about their birth stories. So one of the things that was most noticeable, because I, as the director of Common Knowledge Trust, and I, as the person who developed these Birthing Better skills with the hundreds of fathers and mothers way back in the 70s, is we learned to listen to birth stories very, very differently. So when birth stories talk about birth plans, and in those videos on Channel Mom, as I say in the description, half of the women really focused on creating a birth plan. So how much time did they put into doing that? It's a lot of time, actually. It's a lot of research, a lot of reading, a lot of thinking about it. A lot of time is put into constructing a birth plan. Create a birth plan because they said babies don't come to plan. Well, they're right about that. But that didn't stop any of them from thinking about the type of birth they wanted, because we all think about it. Birth is unknown. We're all trying to gain grasp some control in some manner. So even those that didn't create a birth plan still had an idea of what they wanted at their birth, and they were flexible, but they had ideas about it. None of the births that I watched did anybody's birth plan, whether constructed or imagined, unfold as expected. So it tells us something. Those were only 16 videos, but of the tens and thousands of women that I have talked to who have either constructed a birth plan and spent lots of time doing it, or have thought about what they want. I mean, if you think 3% have pain-free labors, very, very few women actually achieve the full birth plan that they have either created or imagined. And so birth plans are a myth. Doesn't mean you shouldn't create one. Gives you a thinking process, that's fine. But let's talk about your time, because it's valuable. You might work, you might have kids, you might be studying. But how valuable is your baby's birth to you? What's your baby's birth experience worth to you in terms of time? What's it worth? How much time are you going to spend with your baby once it's born? How much money are you going to spend on your baby now that you're pregnant and once you have a child? So what's your time worth? What's your money worth? What's your effort worth? And that's a question that's really important, because what we hear from women all the time is, oh, I don't have time to learn skills. I'm busy. It's too expensive. I'm already taking a class. It's giving me lots of information. I'm already reading. I'm already filling my time doing other things. And then they get into birth, and what's remarkable about the Channel Mom videos is only one woman mentioned having learned a skill. And she was the only person who actually, as her birth unfolded, felt on top of and in control of that birth. None of the others did. Now the payoff for all of those women was that after the birth was over, they all had wonderful feelings about their babies. But not every woman feels that way. And a lot don't. A lot more than you think don't. So we have women who are saying that it didn't matter what happened in the birth ultimately, because they had this baby. But when you take that part out and just listen to their birth stories mattered, and it mattered to them. And you can hear in their birth stories, like the millions others that have been told, at least since birth plans came into being in the early 1980s, is that women don't understand what happened to them. They got through it. We all get through it. You have to get through it, because you have to give birth. That's what naturally follows pregnancy. That's what's normal after you're pregnant, is to have a birth, give birth. And the goal is to have the baby. And you have years and years of parenting. But we also a lot of women spend a lot of time on their wedding and very little time on their marriage. That's why a lot of families split up, isn't it? So we spend a lot of time on a birth plan. We spend a lot of time emphasizing that our birth should be a particular way. But those women, just like all of us, they didn't have the birth they planned. They had the birth that unfolded. And only one of those used skills in order to cope or manage during that birth as it was unfolding. So birth plans are fine. Spend some time making them. But in reality, you're not going to know what you want anyway. And you're not going to stand up against a birth professional if you feel that you or your baby's at risk. And you can't ask your partner to do that either. Their job, your husband, your partner, any other person who's with you, is not to support your choices in a birth plan or to protect your birth space. Their job is to help you stay in control. Your birth space may be totally chaotic, or it may be beautiful. You can be in control in chaos, and you can be out of control in beauty. There's no correlation. So when you make a birth plan, really, instead of talking about I want and I don't want, you might want to talk about, I just want to discuss these things as they unfold. Because in my years of experience, 45 years of experience, I have just, you pound your head. Oh my God, what was that woman thinking? And it's very hard for the person with you, your husband or your partner or other, to try to support your birth plan when you're telling them that's what I wanted then, but I don't want it now. It's very hard for them to support your birth plan when you say, this is what I wanted, this is what I got, but I'm pissed off 6 months later. So there's no focus on what you are doing during that activity. There's no ability for your partner to really help you do that activity because there's no societal message being given out to anybody that you should become skilled. And those few skills-based resources are still totally focused on achieving a normal birth or a non-medical birth and a pain-free experience. And some of these courses actually say, and don't use anything other than what we're doing. Just think positively. Never listen to anything negative. But if we never listen to the challenging births, we will never learn from them. And what our commitment at Birthing Better Families was to listen to every birth and to learn from them. Many of the skills were developed in hindsight. The what if, what we could have done. We have to learn how to birth. We can't just elevate those beautiful women who just look gorgeous birthing. But we can have more women looking empowered birthing as they're using skills. Because birth professionals who work with skilled families consistently see that it's not an accident. You can have 8 out of 10 birthing families look, behave, and appear skilled, coping, and managing when they are skilled. So when you make your birth plan, make a skills-based birth plan as well. You spend time creating a birth plan. Spend a fraction of that time learning skills, and then write them down, and then use them. And remember, you have to learn them. You can't just go, oh yeah, I did. No, you can't. Because every inhale you make matters. That's your choice. You can inhale like this, right? Or, Instead, if you had skills, you'll know to inhale and expand in your pelvis. And if you don't know how to expand in your pelvis, then you need to practice. Do you need to stop doing what you're doing to practice? No, do it while you're driving, while you're working, while you're taking care of your kids, while you're walking, while you're running, while you're exercising. Expand in your pelvis. And then as you exhale, soften inside your pelvis. That's part of your skills-based birth plan. I'm going to use my breathing to expand and soften, and then do it. So when you start to look at birth plans, and when you watch those videos, listen. What are the women telling you? Skip the part at the moment about their babies, because that's beautiful, and it's emotional, and it's loving, and it's just a wonderful experience. Everybody's baby is important. But when you take that part away and just listen to their stories, listen to their gaps, what would they have done had they become skilled? That's a question, isn't it? So hopefully this helps to debunk the myths around choices and birth plans. They change. Unexpected things happen. You don't always like the choices you wanted. You're willing to change those choices and then either feel good about those changes or be pissed off. You want people to protect your choices and then you're pissed off at them. You want them to protect your choices and then you're pissed off at yourself 6 months later. So don't be fooled. Birth plans are just an organizational tool in your mind, and you can imagine them or you can inform people. But if you don't go in there with skills, then your behaviors are more likely to add to the complexity that you feel about this unexpected birth as it unfolds. Whereas when you have skills, you're more likely to moment, cope and manage with your birth as it's unfolding. So see you later. Bye-bye.